All right, let's dive into one of the most, and I mean most, mind-bending theories out there. We're talking about a claim so wild it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But here's the thing. For a while, it was actually a subject of serious debate.
No, seriously, just stop and think about that for a second. What if the calendar on your phone, the dates you learned in history class, what if it's all built on a massive lie? That is the absolute core of the phantom time hypothesis. It's the idea that a huge chunk of the early Middle Ages just, poof, never even happened.
297 years. Just let that sink in. That's how much time this theory says was literally invented, just fabricated and slotted into our history books by some seriously powerful people. So you gotta wonder, right? How on earth did anyone even dream up an idea this audacious?
Well, the whole thing starts in a pretty unexpected place, not with some ancient secret society, but with a math problem. Yeah, a simple nagging discrepancy in our calendar that just didn't add up.
Okay, so let's break this down. Back in 1582, Pope Gregory XIII saw that the old Julian calendar was out of sync with the seasons by about 10 days. So he fixed it. He just skipped 10 days. Simple enough, right? But then, fast forward to the 1990s. A historian named Herbert Illig decides to double-check the math. And according to his calculations, the calendar should have been off by 13 days, not 10.
So, where did the other 3 days go? That's the question that kicks this whole thing off. For Illig, the answer was, well, it was shocking. He figured the only way to explain it was that those 3 days of drift, which, by the way, represent about 300 years of time, they never existed in the first place.
And just like that, the phantom time hypothesis was born. The theory goes that this whole chunk of history was basically invented on purpose. All the famous events, the big-name figures, they were either total fakes or they were real people and events that got moved around in time to fill the gap.
Okay, so why? I mean, who would pull off something this massive? Well, the theory has a whole conspiracy laid out. It starts with the motive. Holy Roman Emperor Otto III really wanted to be the guy ruling in the super important year 10,000 AD. The only problem? He was actually living in the 700s. So the solution was kind of simple if you think about it. Just change the date. And to cover it all up, he and the Pope supposedly cooked up a bunch of fake documents and invented heroes. Even, and get this, a figure as huge as Charlemagne, just to fill in the blanks.
Now, this whole idea isn't just based on that calendar math. The people who believe in it, they point to other things too, stuff they see as evidence, or maybe more importantly, a lack of evidence in the actual historical record.
So you can see it right here on the timeline. We're talking about the years from 614 AD to 911 AD. This is the so-called phantom time. This is the chunk of history that was supposedly just inserted to jump the calendar ahead to that magical year 1000.
And the evidence they use? Well, they point to a few key things. For one, they say there's a weird lack of archaeological stuff from this exact period. Then there's the art and architecture. Things like the Romanesque style just seem to pop up out of nowhere, way too advanced for their time. Plus, they argue the written records we do have are pretty thin, often contradictory, and, famously, a lot of documents from that era are known forgeries.
Okay, but this is where the whole theory hits a massive wall. To really see why pretty much every mainstream historian says no way, we have to zoom out. We have to look outside of Europe. I mean, think about it. Let's say, for the sake of argument, an emperor and a pope could somehow trick all of Europe into changing the date. Could they really pull off that same trick across the entire globe? Well, the evidence we have from other major civilizations gives a pretty clear answer. Absolutely not. So let's start with Europe's next-door neighbor, the Byzantine Empire. I mean, this was a huge, literate civilization, and their historians kept incredible detailed records. And guess what? There's no 300-year gap. Their history flows perfectly, right through what was supposed to be Europe's phantom time.
Then you've got the Islamic world, which was in its golden age. Scholars in places like Baghdad were making unbelievably precise astronomical observations. And here is the real kicker. They recorded things like Halley's Comet showing up, and it appeared right on schedule. You can't fake the orbits of planets and comets. Their data lines up perfectly with our standard history, not the phantom one.
And just in case that wasn't enough to convince you, let's go halfway around the world to China. The Tang Dynasty was keeping its own super detailed records. And surprise, surprise, their timeline also matches ours perfectly. No missing centuries. It's this kind of cross-checking from totally independent cultures that is the reason why this whole hypothesis is just completely rejected by historians today.
So yeah, the phantom time hypothesis is pretty much not true. But that doesn't mean it's useless. It's actually kind of fascinating, and it works like a great thought experiment. It's like a ghost story for historians that makes us ask some really uncomfortable questions about what we think we know.
It forces us to ask this really big, fundamental question. How do we really know what we know about the past? If history isn't this solid thing we can just look at, but more like a story that's been passed down and retold, how can we ever be 100% sure we've got it right? Because the truth is, our understanding of the past is a bit of a construction. It's built on these fragile old documents that have been copied and translated and interpreted for centuries. So even though the theory is wrong, it does an amazing job of showing just how fragile that record is and how easily it could be messed with.
And that leaves us with one last, kinda unsettling thought to chew on. Okay, maybe they didn't invent 300 years out of thin air, but it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What smaller lies, what little convenient edits, what useful tweaks were quietly written into our past that we still read in history books and accept as the absolute truth today?